What's up, people? Welcome to week 2. I hope that you had a good first week. I hope that you're still in the class, which meant that you did the welcome quiz and you were able to uh, be kept in here. And that I hope that you made at least an 80 on the MLA quiz in order to be able to do all the work we have moving forward. Okay. So let's get rolling so you understand what we're doing for week 2. Okay, well, if we look at our English 1102 list of assignments and due dates, okay, all right, we've already done this. All this was all last week. Last week. So we're going to fill that in. Okay, that didn't fill in at all. There we go. Okay, we did it. We're good. Okay. Don't know why that doesn't fill in. Who cares? This week, okay, we have a couple lectures to watch. We have at least 2. I might break this one up into 2 also, so then we might actually have 3 lectures. Okay. Um. Oh. Okay. One of the lectures, the lecture on story of an hour, the analysis of it. Okay. That was recorded like 2 years ago. Okay. I don't re-record that one because I go over all the same stuff. Okay. So it's in a different room. It's a totally different setup. Okay. So don't be freaked out by that one if you notice any change. Even though it's only on the paper, so I'm pretty sure you won't even notice. I don't think you even see my face or my hair or anything. Okay. But that one was from a couple of years ago, but it's still important for me to use. It's still relevant. Okay. So you're watching this lecture right now. Okay. In this lecture, I'm going to go over existentialism, Sartre, Petite Mort, Simone de Beauvoir, how to integrate quotes, understanding theme, and the story of an hour. Okay. Which is one of the quotes, one of the lectures you're going to watch. And then this week, you are going to complete the story of the hour assignment, and you are going to read The Adulterous Woman and do discussion 2 posts on The Adulterous Woman, which I'm going to show you where all that is during this lecture, which is the point of the lectures. So, okay. So this past week, you were supposed to have done some research on Sartre, existentialism, and Le Petite Mort. Okay, and all that's because it applies to the short story that you're reading, The Adulterous Woman, for this week, and the story that you read, The Story of an Hour. Okay, both those are feminist existential stories, and really, essentially, they're rewrites. Story of an Hour came out first, and then The Adulterous Woman was written about 40 years later. Okay, but there's so many shared elements of the two. Okay, so this week you're in lessons. Okay, and you were in lesson 1 last week. This week you're in lesson 2. All the things that we're really covering this week are here. Okay, you should read all this stuff, all the little literary analysis essay, incorporating research. Okay, these chapters. Watch the videos. Okay, this is all good for you. Ignore that. All right, so that's the short story that you should have read. I'm gonna use these PowerPoints. The PowerPoints I'm gonna present to you today are located here. Okay, this one I'm about to go over right now, Existentialism. This is a PDF copy of the notes. Okay, when for this assignment right here, you're gonna have to integrate quotes. So I'm going to go over that right here. Okay, this is the PDF of that PowerPoint that I'm going to show you today. All right. So there's your resources in case you need them. Okay. I'm going to pull up the existentialism PowerPoint right now that we're going to go over. So that way it'll help you to understand better the assignment and the short story that we are reading. Let's see, can I get to slideshow underneath this little guy? All right, here we go. So we're going over existentialism because this short story that we're reading, the two of them are existentialist stories. Okay. And so it's good to have an understanding of the genre in which it falls under and understanding the ideas of it. And your essay the first essay you are going to write deals with existentialism. Okay. And it deals with these readings. So it's important for us to have kind of a good understanding of them. Okay. So existentialism. This philosophy and type of literature in film is concerned with existence. I mean, it's in the title right there. Who am I? What does my life mean? Why do I feel guilty? Why am I afraid? Okay. And there's all types of existentialists. There are religious existentialists. There are Christian existentialists like Soren Kierkegaard, who he was very much about this idea of how to exist on earth when God is in heaven. There are atheist existentialists, much like Sartre and Camus, who do not believe in the existence of God, and we're here on earth and we need to figure out what we're supposed to be doing on earth. Okay. And then, like it's no longer with the development of society, it's no longer just like trying to survive. I mean, if we were cave persons, we're just trying to live. We're just trying to get food and live. But now that we have built this whole society and we've built this way of living that deals with so much more than just the bare minimum, it in people creates a lot of fear or anxiety and feelings of alienation and just confusion. And so existentialism really tries to get to the core of how to exist as a social being. And also trying to raise awareness about how social structures can create cages and forms of psychological enslavement on people, okay, or physical enslavement on people, and class struggle, gender struggles, racial struggles, all these things, okay. So it addresses a lot, and it can relate to any person who lives as a member of society. All right, so let's get to the La Petite Mort, okay? The La Petite Mort literally means in French a little death, okay? And as a literal meaning, like literally, all right, it is a euphemism. It's an ironic euphemism for an orgasm that's achieved through, sexual acts, okay? And it's ironic, of course, because it sounds like, something bad, a little death, okay? But when people have an orgasm, it's supposed to feel really, really good, okay? And then, a lot of people fall asleep afterwards, which is kind of like falling into death, all right? And but people are kind of like, grossed out, or there's an ick factor of saying the O word. And so instead we call it the La Petite Mort to kind of give it this sort of silly little, it sounds like, it is French, all right, sounding phrase, okay? So that's the literal. The literal is sexual, okay? In existentialism, okay, it has a deeper symbolic meaning. It might show up in the form of a sexual act or to imitate something, but really, though, it's not about sex at all, because for existentialists, okay, they reject the shallowness of the physical world and the physical pleasures. All right, these are false. These don't have real value to them. Okay, these are false pleasures that only last a moment and then they fade away. They're gone. Okay. So the Petite Mort in existential literature is a symbolism. Okay. And it represents true pleasure that comes from epiphany, or as therapists refer to them, breakthroughs. An epiphany is when you have a sudden realization of something. Okay. You finally see the light. Okay. A breakthrough is when you've been going to therapy for a long time and then suddenly you realize the cause of your problems, the real, and how to achieve them and overcome them, and you literally break through your conflict. Okay. And so existential dread is found through deep realizations about life that bring about liberation and peace. Okay. All right. So we are able to free ourselves from this dread. Okay. Freeing ourselves is found through liberation and peace. Okay. The Petite Mort is literally a psychological orgasm that kills that old perspective or understanding that kept people in existential chains. Okay. All right. So relief from this dread and finding peace, okay, comes through this mental liberation. Okay. It's like a mental orgasm, the Petite Mort. Okay. All right. So Jean-Paul Sartre, okay, he is a writer and he wrote about he wrote some plays and he wrote philosophy itself, okay, and I had you look him up, all right, and to look up the waiter, okay, and the waiter is, we're going to talk about that more next week, all right, and especially in reference to the adulterous woman, okay. He's French, okay, and he believes a lot in this idea that um, existence precedes essence, meaning we exist, but we don't have meaning until we make that meaning, and that meaning is essence. You can go through life just doing the basics of eating, sleeping, pooping, okay, getting through life, having your job, going home, sitting on the couch, watch TV, go to sleep, wake up, same thing over and over again, okay? That you exist, but just because you exist doesn't mean that your life has essence, something worth living for and doing, okay? He has this idea of there's the little b in being, and then there's the capital B in being. Living deliberately is capital B being. He was very critical of Nazi soldiers who said, I just went along with it. I'm a soldier and I do what I'm told. Okay. And he was fundamentally opposed to that type of thinking. He was part of the French resistance. He fought in World War II. And he was like, no, you do not blindly do anything. Okay. Bad faith. He has this idea of bad faith when people are too terrified to face the freedom and responsibility of choice and revert to old existing norms and rules and just going along with it. Okay, going along with it. So he's very much against that. Okay, you do not just go along with what society tells you, what people tell you, what the norms tell you, what the church tells you, what your country tells you, if it is not actually good. Okay, so you can just exist and be a lowercase being, or you can have essence and be a capital B being and live deliberately. Okay, and that very much is going to go into the adulterous woman. We're going to talk a lot about that bad faith and living for yourself in the adulterous woman. But that's also mentioned a lot in the story of an hour. living for oneself. Okay, Albert Camus, who wrote The Adulterous Woman, he was best friends with Sartre. They were all buddy. He wrote The Stranger, and he wrote a series of short stories. He wrote some other books. Okay, and he much of his stuff is hand in hand with Sartre. This idea of living deliberately. You can't just be a cog. You can't just be going. If you just go through life without really trying, then you are gonna one day wake up and realize that your life is not yours anymore, and that it was not what you'd planned, and you're gonna regret it. Okay. And so his story, The Adulterous Woman, is very much about that a woman who has a Petite Mort, a realization that she has been living passively. His most famous work, one of them is The Myth of Sisyphus. Okay, and that essentially he believes in principled rebellion. You have to rebel on principle. Even if you are enslaved, you can rebel. His hero is enslaved by the gods. He has to enact this repeated action of that's supposed to be torture, and which is Sisyphus, but he has Sisyphus do it with a smile on his face, which absolutely enrages the gods, because the gods are trying to make him live in misery by making him force him to do this same task of pushing a huge boulder up a steep hill just so it would roll back down over and over again. But as long as he does it with a smile on his face, he's in an act of rebellion against the gods, because they want him to be in misery. And he says, even though you can enslave my body, you cannot enslave my mind or my heart or my emotions. And so he does it with a smile on his face, and that's essentially a mental FU. It's the middle finger up in the air as he does it. It's the fist in the air. And it makes me think of William Wallace. He says, they may take our lives, but they won't ever take our freedom. Okay, which is true. That's the total. It's a great existential tenet. So you can take my life, but you can't take my freedom, no matter what. Okay. And then Simone, she's the third one. She was Sartre and her were essentially married emotionally, but they were not. But they were polymorphous. Okay, polyamorous, not polymorphous. They didn't shapeshift. They were polyamorous. They had a bunch of different lovers. They would share lovers. They would pass lovers off to each other, but they were like emotionally committed to each other. I have a book of their letters, their love letters to each other and stuff. And so neither one of them believed in marriage at all. They thought it was very restrictive, but they did have a deep respect for each other. Okay. And you are going to be using some of Simone de Beauvoir's quotes in your analysis of the story of an hour. Okay. So she is the female Sartre. She was a leading feminist and proponent of existentialism. She wrote extensively about women and women's rights and the way women's bodies have been oppressed forever. Okay. Her book, The Second Sex, is about the treatment of women throughout history. Great book. So much in it. All the quotes that I've pulled for you to this week come from The Second Sex. She believes male and female are facts of biology, but man and women are socially constructed categories that the idea of masculinity and the idea of femininity are all constructed. They're all made up by men. And that, though, of course, that like men and women do experience the world very differently, and this shapes who they are, both which is a lot from a social and biological level. Okay. Biology plays a large role in the way men and women see the world differently. Women are more empathetic to others, while men are more narcissistic. Okay, and that comes from this false idea that bigger is better. Men are narcissistic because they're larger. Women are more empathetic because they are smaller. It's a paradox that women connect with others more easily than men, yet they desire a greater need for self than men. So these are just some of her ideas. Some feminists don't agree with her any longer, but some do. Okay. Social conformity equals gender identity. In a male-dominant society, argues that it is the normal that is to be striven for. You are healthy when you can function in society. But men decided what was normal behavior for women, and that's the problem. Okay. Because what if you simply choose not to be that way? And then that creates a battleground. So what we're going to see is how the male constructed society, which we refer to as the patriarchy, has created many walls and barriers for our female characters in the story of an hour and the adulterous woman. Okay. And we're seeing how these women, fight against those things. All right. So you're going to be applying this sort of this feminist existential ideas to the story of an hour. Okay. All right. So I'm going to show you where that is. So this is the story of an hour assignment that you're doing this week. After reading the chapter titled Fiction as Genre, in a minimum of 300-word response, and address the following questions. 1. Explain the Petite Mort that Miss Mallard experiences in the story. What part of her dies, and what part of her is now fully alive? Okay, that is, I'll cover that in the lecture on the story of an hour. Okay, so make sure you watch it. And then take a quote from Simone de Beauvoir and use the story of an hour to illustrate the point that de Beauvoir makes in her statements. So these are the quotes right here. De Beauvoir quotes from the female perspective unit. Open this up. Okay, and here I offer you like 27 quotes. I mean, it's a 1,000-page book. It's 1,000 pages. So 27 quotes to pick from. Okay, and you're gonna pick one of those quotes to relate to the story of an hour. Okay, and I'm gonna show you what that looks like, and how to do that. Okay, and all of this is there's a purpose for this. Okay, essay 1, which I'll get into a little bit. You're gonna be and by a little bit, I mean I'm gonna get to it in a couple of weeks. But in that essay, you'll be writing about short stories, and you're gonna be pulling quotes from other people to further your analysis of the short story. So what you do in this one assignment is like going to be what you do in your entire essay, but just times 3. This is like 1/3 of what you'll actually be doing. Okay, so this activity, regardless, this class is not about existentialism. This class is not about the ideology. All right, we're just using that as a vehicle to practice writing and interpreting and writing about our interpretation and using outside sources to integrate into our analysis. Okay. So this class is a skill-based class. The skills that I'm having you utilize in these assignments is the important stuff. Okay. Now, of course, I want you to know all this information because I think it's interesting, but you are not being tested over your knowledge of existentialism. You're being tested over your skills of can you take a quote and apply it to a short story and provide an analysis. Okay. Okay. So if we go back to, all right. So how do you do that? How do you integrate the quote, all right, into your analysis? Well, I'm going to show you. Okay. If you have not already downloaded the Story of an Hour text, you're going to want to do that. So that way, when I go over when you watch the lecture. Ooh, so I think I'm going to stop here because this would be, if you have not, because you should watch the Story of an Hour analysis before moving on to the quotes. So I'm going to stop here, okay? And at this point, you should watch the Story of an Hour lecture, okay, which you can find under lectures and in the announcements, okay? Watch the Story of an Hour lecture, and then when you're done watching the Story of an Hour lecture, then watch the third lecture about how to integrate quotes, okay? All right, good job. See you later.